Hi there! Today, as our videos are published on a Friday, and the Friday that this video is being published is actually going to be the 75th anniversary of VE Day, we thought we'd kind of talk about that a bit really, didn't we?
That and some other things, yes.
Some other things, yes. So Friday the 8th of May is a bank holiday in the UK. Normally bank holidays aren't on a Friday unless it's Good Friday, but the government moved it to Friday this year, moved the May Day bank holiday to Friday this year, specifically for the 75th anniversary of VE Day. I'm guessing so people could have street parties and so on to celebrate.
No, mind you, this was before pre-lockdown, so...
Well, it's quite a bit before lockdown. But obviously that isn't going to happen now with social distancing and everything, which is a shame because I quite like street parties. They've had them for celebrating various jubilees of the Queen and royal weddings. There was one for the 50th anniversary of D-Day, which I went to. So they're good fun, but obviously this isn't going to happen now. But it gives us a chance to think about those people who did sacrifice so much for us during the Second World War. Now, my grandmother, she died a few years ago at the age of 97. So she was a young woman during the Second World War, and she used to tell different stories of what it was like. And one that she told that's kind of stuck with me a bit was she and my granddad used to have a grocery shop, and one of her older sisters and her husband also had a grocery shop. And when war was declared and both my granddad and my great uncle, he would be, were called up, what my grandmother and her sister did was they pooled their resources and they moved in together as well. So they spent 2 weeks in one house and 2 weeks in the other, not knowing what was going on with their husbands because there was very little communication, which must have been really tough for them. And their mother, so my great grandmother, didn't live far away from them, so she used to go and visit them. And she visited them one evening when they were stopping at my great aunt's house, the 2 weeks there. And when she left, she got hit by a car during the blackout, because everything was blacked out obviously, so the German bombers wouldn't know where to drop their bombs. And sadly she died from her injuries. It's just a story that stuck with me through that time. So it wasn't just the men who went off to war, it was the people who were left behind who had all sorts of sacrifices that they made too.
Women, children, everybody helped in their own way and everyone sacrificed in their own way.
That's right. Now obviously the only way that they could keep up with what was going on was either through newspapers or through the radio, because there was no television then. So a lot of families would sit around the radio to hear what was going on and what Churchill was going to say. So that radio's where you come in, isn't it, John?
It is, because I've always, from a very young age, I've always enjoyed listening to radio from the 30s, 40s and 50s, and feel in many ways it's much better than television, because with radio you're completely relying on your imagination to paint the picture, so it can be as real or it can be as faded as you want it to be. With television, you take what's on the screen, and if you don't like it, you switch it off. But with the radio, to a certain degree, you control what's on the screen of your imagination.
So you've been looking at listening to some old radio shows that you found, haven't you, John?
I spent a good majority of when not browsing Disney Plus. That's what I've been doing a lot during lockdown.
So what sorts of programs have you found then, John?
Oh gosh, I've actually found some broadcasts that took place during the war, and found some of the old Churchill speeches. If you want something a bit more whimsical, there's a show from 1937 which I remember quite well. This is why Sue jokes that I'm called Jerry of the Circus. And then there's one I've been binge listening to that my granny introduced me to back when I was about 9 or 10, called The Shadow. And there's several episodes of that I've just been binge listening to, and just really bringing back a lot of memories.
Just kind of going back to the ones that you said that you'd heard Churchill. Do you think he sounded quite inspirational? Do you think as a person sitting listening to the radio that you'd have felt that things were going okay and you'd have felt confident in his leadership?
It's a completely different time. In short answer to your question is, the answer is yes. I think he does sound very inspirational. I think in other ways, and this is the downfall, or I don't want to say the downfall, but kind of the back then the radio was literally all you had, so you had to depend on that to pretty much know this is what was going on, when now it's a bit more open and you can get a bit more of an idea, which isn't always the best thing either, because now anyone can say anything, and if enough people say it, it's true. So long and short, I would say yes. I think I think he was very inspirational, but I also think that, remember at the time, that's all you had to work with.
Yeah. So sadly, we're not going to be putting up our Union Jack flags and our Union Jack bunting tomorrow and hauling our tables and chairs out for a street party, which is a shame because they are good fun. I remember two that I've been to. There was one in 1977 for the Queen's Silver Jubilee, and I remember that because all of us kids got commemorative mugs to celebrate the Silver Jubilee, so I remember that. I may still have my mug somewhere. And I went to one for the 50th anniversary of D-Day as well, which was good. But there's been others for royal weddings and so on, as I've said.
I think to commemorate the day, I will wear my Union Jack hat, sit outside.
Yes, you do have a Union Jack hat, don't you, John?
I do, so to commemorate the day, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my hat out and I'm going to sit outside.
It's very patriotic towards your adopted country.
Yes, exactly. So if we're together while I'm wearing my hat, then we'll be doing the patriotic thing of commemorating VE Day.
Yes. Well, whatever you're doing on VE Day to commemorate it, I hope you have a great day. Thanks for joining us. We hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please give us a thumbs up. And if you don't already, we'd really, really, really appreciate it a lot if you would subscribe.
And also feel free to tell your friends, folks, because if your friends subscribe and you subscribe, it's a win-win for everybody.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again next time. Bye.